Why do you, or why do good team members leave if you keep toxic team members on for too long? You know you need to do something, but when is the right time?
Okay, so that's a good question. So your key people, your A players, your best team members, they are working typically for 3 employees. Like if you take a top 10% and a bottom 10%, the output, the productivity is probably 3-to-1 over the weak employee. Now, the better employee is not stupid. They know that you are paying the other person too, and probably close-ish to what they're getting paid. So if I'm paying my best employee $35 an hour and I'm paying my weakest employee $27 an hour, then the top employee is going to say, why am I putting in twice the effort or 3 times the effort that this person is doing when they're doing nothing, and in fact I'm often doing their job? I'm going to go somewhere else where I don't have to work as hard, or where I don't feel this. They say that, but they're not. When a person is an A player, they're going to work at that level anyway. They're just irritated that there is someone there who is, and usually what happens, this is an interesting dynamic, is usually that the weak employee is the one that's commanding all the attention, because they're the one that causes all the problems. And so the management is always focused on dealing with this person and their issues and trying to work around them, rather than putting all their energy into their best people, which is what I teach in 5-15-80, to grow their best people, because those people will grow. The poor employee, the weak employee, isn't going to grow. So putting any energy there is a waste of time.
Right.
So again, just to back up a little bit on 5-15-80, because it really applies here, you have your top 10, your bottom 10, and the middle 80. The top employees pull the team up, the weak employees pull the team down. Where everyone else sits in the middle, it just depends on who's pulling harder. So for me, when do I deal with a weak employee? As soon as I see it. As soon as I see it, I want to deal with it. It might be a conversation. It might be, maybe getting clearer on accountabilities. It might be exiting the person, depending on the situation. Whatever it happens to be. Usually, when I see a problem like that, the ad goes out. Now, in our case, the ad was always out because we had a standard process for leveling up the team. There was always an ad running for all positions, and it ran for 5 years, right? Because it was, if we found an excellent employee, and we did sometimes when we weren't hiring, we would find a spot for them, because I do not like to let great people go by, because when you need them, you can't find them.
Right.
But if you have them and you're starting to bring them into the training league sort of thing, right? We bring them into an entry-level role, they start leveling up, and then when we did need them, they were ready to pull in. Right? So we kind of had this depth on the bench, so to speak, right? So if you leave your key people to have to deal with disengaged employees, basically, then they become resentful. They become, people can easily wonder, why do I work so hard when this person is doing this, or this person is actually undermining what I'm doing, because they're, so poor at whatever they're doing. And so these are the kind of things that happen. If you don't deal with the weak employee, you're frustrating your best people. And they notice it right away, because they're the ones that are working hard. They're the ones that are doing, the work of 3 other people would be doing. So you need to deal with those issues. Not to mention that if you're carrying a weak person, that's a position, a wage that you could turn over and add to the top of your pile, to the core of the team, and grow the whole team. Usually cutting that anchor early, the whole team rises, right? If you wait, though, this person that you know you need to deal with, that you don't deal with, often eventually starts to cause issues in the team. That cancer starts to spread up. And eventually now what was one person's problem becomes 2 people's problem, and 3 people's problem. And now you have a big issue, because if I fire this person, well, they're friends at the bottom there, and you end up having to lose 3 people to fix the problem, right? I mean, that's annoying, because no one wants to have turnover. So it's failure to act when you need to act. And it doesn't have to be firing a person. It sometimes just needs to be a conversation, okay? People can step up. People can grow. But if they've demonstrated that they will not, then move on.
Perfect. How do you keep a team member from talking negatively about other team members? So you have one team member just focusing on finding faults in other team members.
So that is a personality flaw that can be overcome, but it's hard.
Okay.
The reason I say it can be overcome because humans are wired that way. We find fault. We like to play judge. We like to, look at what other people are doing wrong instead of what we're doing wrong. So you'll probably remember this, but how often did we talk about gossip at team meetings?
All the time.
Everyone. Every single meeting.
Yes.
Because it is that important.
Right.
We have our accountability, our playground etiquette, right?
Yes.
We don't talk about anyone behind their back. If we have to talk about a person, we bring them into the conversation.
Right.
We don't tolerate gossip. Gossip was grounds for termination in our office. If it became a problem, there was not too many questions asked. We just don't tolerate it.
Right.
So that people think twice about it. Now, to get people to understand why it's so important, again, back to culture. If there is a fault with a person, if there is an issue, maybe none of us are perfect. What a thought. Maybe we all make mistakes. Maybe we all do or don't do things that we should do or shouldn't do. But instead of attacking the person, does it help them that we talk about it? No. Does it help them if we approach them about it? Yes. So culture. The culture module tackles this. And so does the leadership workshop at length. Because all you do with gossip, I don't have to go through all of the downsides of gossip. There are nothing but downsides, right? All you do is create irreparable damage in the team. If you actually care about the issue with the person, rather than just talking about it, because that's what a lot of people like to do, because it gives them their, makes them feel better about themselves by talking about other people, then you want to go and actually approach that person and just say, hey, you know what? When you do this, it causes this, and this is what happens as a result. Could we commit to not doing that, or to doing this, or to doing this differently, right? And sometimes that's a conversation for the team leader to have, because I guarantee they see it too.
Right.
And sometimes it's just between two team members to talk about it. And sometimes it doesn't need to be talked about. Focus on yourself.
Right.
Right? This is something that I constantly try to beat into people's heads, is that maybe the problem is not them, but it's you. Maybe instead of worrying about what they're doing, I could be a better example to them. There's lots of ways to look at that, but this is leadership workshop now. So, that's as far as I'll go without saying just go watch leadership workshop, because we talk about this at length. But maybe that's the way to solve that. And if the person just has a gossip problem and that's just that's their thing and they won't let it go, line change. That's one of the few areas where I'm indiscriminately replacing people.
Right.
Yeah. If it's because what happens with that is they just take the whole team down.
Absolutely.
It just becomes and it's so tough to stamp out. I remember one of our associates once said, well, it's like you cut the head off the snake and it just goes on their head. I'm like, well, then I'll just keep sharpening my axe, because I'm not going to let this go and live in a cesspool office where everyone is hating on everyone all the time. That's ridiculous. We can do better. And we did. Right? I mean, sometimes you have to ask people, seems like, and they're always the last one to understand, well, I don't know what happened. Well, gee, I don't know. What could have happened? Out of 10 words, 8 of them were gossip. Be useful, be productive. Try to actually improve the situation. What are you doing about it? If you don't like what that person's doing, how are you affecting it? How could you make it better?
Right.
Could you help them? Could you teach them something? Could you, whatever? Maybe you could do a better job and lead by example. So there's all these things that, but again, this is why gossip was a discussion at every single team meeting. I had something to teach or train about it. Yeah. Because it's an ongoing conversation. You just can't be done with it, because people are wired that way. It's just a part of our makeup, unfortunately.
Super. How do you change an overall negative attitude in your office, and where do you start? It's right across the board.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you where you start. I'll give you one guess, right? So Leadership
Right.
starts at the top. If the whole team is negative, I wonder where it started. I know people don't like to hear that, but that's typically what happens.
Right.
So go watch the leadership workshop, okay? Because if the leader at the top, who is the owner, is overwhelmingly positive, you're not going to surround yourself with negative people. And if you have done that and you want to make a change, then you need to start with you, and then you need to work on the people around you. If they won't change, which I doubt it, because people are a product of their environment mostly, okay? So look at it this way. If the leader is super positive and energetic, it's going to affect the team.
Right.
Impossible that it doesn't. If the team becomes positive, it affects the patients. The converse is true. If you have a really negative team, I bet the practice as a whole, all the statistics suck.
Right.
I guarantee it. I'm sure the new patient flow is low, and I'm sure that the production is nowhere near what it should be. Certainly. Because you're creating what you're getting, right? So the first place to start would be the leader. Long look in the mirror. Fix it. Commit to improve. And maybe it starts with a discussion with the team saying, hey, I am making a personal change and here's what I'm doing. And I'm going to make a concerted effort to do these things. And I would like you all to come along with me because we'll just have a whole lot more fun together. Right. Maybe you don't have that conversation, you just do it. And people are going to say, what's in his coffee? You know, something weird about this. They're like, is this real? You know, so maybe you just start off slowly, but, you know, again, sometimes it requires turnover. Sometimes it requires a line change and a do-over. I mean, you'd like to prevent that because that's difficult. So here's what I would suggest is when the leader makes the change, because that's not an option, of the team, most will respond to that positively, and you'll see what happens. So then it will stand out who the true negative people are.
Right.
Those people you might have to turn over. But it starts at the top. Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm sorry for anyone listening to this who thinks their team is the problem. The team is a product of the leader, period. It doesn't mean it's all your fault. And someone's going to say, oh, you're picking on the business owner. It's an easy cop-out to just blame the dentist. No, no. Every team, even a little kid's sports team, is a product of the coach.
Right.
Okay? The ethics, the morality, the enthusiasm is a product of the leader. Period. So if you fix that, you fix the rest. 100%.